Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. Today we will be making a sourdough bread from scratch. All you will need is 3 simple ingredients: all-purpose flour, water, and salt. The first thing you will need to do is make a sourdough starter. This will act as the yeast of your bread. It does take a few days to get the starter going, so you need to prepare in advance. You will also need a Dutch oven, a kitchen scale, some parchment paper, and white rice flour. It's also helpful to have a proofing basket or a banneton like this. Soon I will make another video about how to make a starter, but for now I'm going to assume that you have a starter that is ready and active. This is what active starter will look like. It will be bubbly and it will have doubled in size. I make my dough in the evening, right after dinner time. That way it can rest overnight and then cool in the fridge during the day, and it's ready to bake the next evening. Using a kitchen scale, add 375 grams of water to a large bowl. Now add 100 grams of your starter to the water. It can be a little sloppy, so just go slow. Mix the combination together until all of the starter appears to kind of dissolve into the water. Now you're going to add 500 grams of flour to the combination. It's helpful to tare the scale in between steps so you don't have to add. Don't forget to add 15 grams of salt. Using a spoon, stir the mixture together until the dough starts to form. Once it gets really difficult to form, you're going to need to mix it with your hand. I like to take the bowl over to my sink. It's really helpful to have your hand wet as it makes the dough not really stick as much. So you're just going to kind of squeeze the dough together with a hand until it really comes together. It's going to be very sticky, so I like to stay near the sink here. That way I can just wash my hands right after. You can scrape some of the extra stuff off of your hands. You don't want to waste your dough. Now you want to take a wet or damp towel and just cover your dough. We're going to let it sit on the counter for 15 minutes. So it's good to set a timer. And when your 15 minutes are up, you're then going to uncover your dough. And again, maybe wet your hands. This part helps. And you're going to basically fold the dough. So you want to do this, I do it for 8 times. So I just kind of turn the bowl as I'm going. You stretch the dough and fold it over. I do that about 8 times there. Once you're finished with that, cover the bowl back up with your towel. And then you're going to let it rest for another 15 minutes. You're going to do the same thing in 15 more minutes, and you might want to do this 2 or 3 more times until the dough is nice and smooth. After that, you're going to leave the dough on your counter, covered, and you're going to leave it overnight. In the morning, the dough should have risen and almost be twice in size and look something sort of like this. So now you want to get some more white rice flour, and you're going to use this to sprinkle over your proofing basket. So you want to make sure you get it all over the sides, that way your dough doesn't stick when you're trying to get it out. So I like to just kind of rub it all over, make sure you got a good dusting there. And then, again, it is helpful to get your hands wet for this part so that the dough doesn't stick to you. So what you're going to do is basically kind of do those folds again and just kind of get your hands underneath the dough. I fold it a couple times. And then I just kind of scoop the whole thing up. So what I try to do is kind of fold it in my hands and make one really smooth surface on the bottom. And that's going to be the part that I put down into the bread basket. This is eventually going to be the top part of the bread, so you want it to be pretty smooth. So you plop it down in there. And then again, you're going to cover it with a wet towel. And now you're going to put it into your refrigerator. And I'm going to leave it in the refrigerator the entire time I'm at work, so that way when I get home, it's ready to bake. So when I get home, it's approximately maybe 8 hours later. The first thing I do when I get home is preheat my oven. You want to make sure your Dutch oven is inside of the oven when you preheat it, and you want to set the temperature to 475 degrees. You want to let that Dutch oven stay in there at 475 for almost an hour before you actually add the dough. So after an hour, take your dough out of the refrigerator, and then you're going to bring it over to your tabletop. And you want to get a piece of parchment paper, and on top of that parchment paper, sprinkle some more of that rice flour on top. This is going to help prevent the bread from sticking to it. So I like to just kind of rub it all over the surface. Once you've done that, you can take your bread basket and you want to just flip the dough right on top of it. And it should come out in one nice little blob there. Now's the fun part. You get to score a design. For this example, I'm just going to make a really simple moon shape here. The reason you have to score the dough is you need to allow it a space for it to kind of puff up as it rises in the oven. You can get really creative here. Some people make some beautiful patterns on their bread. I'm going to keep it simple today, but I'll show you a few pictures of breads I've made in the past. Very carefully take the Dutch oven out of your oven. Make sure you have good oven mitts for this. It is extremely hot. And then using your parchment paper, you can pick up your dough and place it into the Dutch oven. Make sure you do not touch the Dutch oven at all or the lid. You will get burned. So put your oven mitts on, put the lid back on, and then you're going to place the entire Dutch oven into your oven, and you want to put that in for 25 minutes. Again, it's still at 475 degrees. After 25 minutes, you're going to take the lid off of the Dutch oven. This is a good time to peek at your bread, see how it's doing. You also are going to lower the oven temperature to 450 degrees. Now you're going to set a timer for 18 minutes. After 18 minutes, your bread might be done, but it's good to take a peek and make sure it's a deep golden brown color. Very carefully take the Dutch oven out. Don't forget to turn your oven off. And then using the parchment paper, you can pull your loaf out of the Dutch oven and transfer it over to a cooling rack or somewhere where it can cool down. It's very important that you do not cut into your loaf for at least an hour. It is going to continue cooking while it is cooling off. And there you have it.